Hi, this is Sean Wallace, the Dark Destroyer from the Chase, and you're listening to The Late Shift. I don't listen to it, but it's probably adequate. Keep on listening, or else.
Welcome to The Late Shift. My name is Val and I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts
James,
Saul and Jonah.
Guys, unfortunately this week we don't have a huge amount of time to record today's episode, so we're going to blitz right on through to Today in History. So today's segment we'll be starting with Jonah.
Sojourner.
Congratulations on the Knight Noble.
I had to be coerced into it, actually. I said my principles prevent me from accepting a knighthood, and the Queen put the blade to my throat and said, "Kneel, bitch, or die."
Yeah. And then toss just £1 coin in your head and there's your money. Like made you feel even dirty. Like,
There's an old one as well. Like a really cheap slut.
Okay, so Jonah, what have you brought to us today? So Jonah, apologies.
No,
he didn't.
Please don't. We're all friends here. I did, and I don't want it.
Okay.
So today is obviously the 14th of April, and on this day, in 1865, Abraham Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theatre.
That's
but
right.
I'm not going to talk about that.
What are you going to talk about?
Because on the same day, his Secretary of State, Seward, whose first name I have forgotten and didn't note down, was attacked in his home by a one Lewis Thornton Powell. He also developed chocolates.
No.
No, that's a lie. That is an actual lie. He has no connection to Thornton's chocolate.
Yeah,
I believed. Did you believe?
Thornton's chocolates make you attack people.
Jonah's voice carries so much legitimacy. I'll go like, maybe.
it's the David Amber effect.
Yeah.
It's like, like the chimpanzees will only ever eat each other's bollocks. And you're like, yeah.
Penguins have been known to fly, but only when I ask them.
Up you go. It's just so badly photoshopped. Like, David, I believe you. I believe you, David. Yeah.
So Jonah, why did he get attacked?
It was a conspiracy. So a piracy bomb. It was a conjectural theory. Well, the thing is, it was not a conspiracy in the crazy.
The Lord.
I know the Lord was watching and he did judge. And he said the South should rise again. He was damn miffed that Wilkes Booth got caught.
In the controversial Book of Mormon.
Well, no, it was a conspiracy in the, I guess, what the lawyers would call a RICO sense, in as much as Lewis Thornton Powell was a co-conspirator of John Wilkes Booth. So this was a coordinated attack on the people, on what they perceived to be the leaders of the Union. And obviously the emancipators and so on. No, Seward is often portrayed as being against emancipation, like cautious, but he was actually more for it than Lincoln, according to a lot of people. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Lewis Powell and also the attack. I'll start with the attack because that we can go through quite quickly because it was brutal. So he tried to blag his way into Seward's house as his doctor because Seward was recovering from a carriage accident. So he had several broken bones, including a broken right arm. I say, gesturing to my left.
Was the horse also part of this conspiracy? Is that how the carriage accident happened?
It's speculated the horse was paid to trip.
Now I'm just imagining a horse in an alley with a conspirator being given a very big bag of luxury oats and being like, it's all there. And him sprinkling them and be like,
no, James,
count me
the horse is the one giving the oats. Like, look.
Well, he's paying into the conspiracy.
Yeah.
Well, you mug.
He's the leader.
I want to kill someone. I'll pay you for the right to kill them.
Like, can I have money? Is that like,
Sure.
I've only got oats. But what I was going to ask is the fact that, like, because you said that he was hiding as his doctor, not just a doctor. So surely he walked in and was like, "Hi, I'm your doctor." He was like, "No, you're not."
He I think his clothing is quite. He wore an upmarket suit and a grey waistcoat and a false moustache and a wide-brimmed hat.
Very doctory.
Yeah.
Doctor, I'm trying something new today. Let me in.
I couldn't find any description of what Seward's doctor actually looked like, so I don't know how effective this disguise was.
Was he trying to pretend to be his specific doctor?
Yes, that's the thing. He said, which is the thing, because obviously Seward's butler, a man named Bell,
also looked like his doctor.
was obviously taken aback with this because the doctor had left not an hour before and had made no arrangements to return. But
that was the alarming part.
Within an hour?
No, Doctor, I'm sure you haven't arranged this. Not the fact he was like, well, I just saw the man, and you're clearly not him, you're wearing a fake moustache, unless the butler was also a conspirator, but for a completely different reason, was there with a fake moustache, pretending to be a butler.
Well,
like,
imagine how you'd
hello,
feel, James. Well, imagine how you'd feel. You just invented the fucking telephone, and they make you work as a butler.
I never said name was Alexander Graham, but sure, let's roll with it. Alexander Graham Bell is working as the butler of William Seward. William Seward, Secretary of State to Abraham Lincoln, who is at this moment in Ford's Theatre. As you guys have deduced, this ploy was not working terribly well. So, Powell, who was going under the alias Payne, which was presumably a different alias pretending to be the Doctor, not because Payne's not good for a doctor.
Dr. Payne.
You ain't even if you are the doctor.
Hello, it is me, Dr. Payne.
So Bell is
Are you
not
a good doctor? Yes.
I think he's anaesthetic.
Could you tell by my false moustache and wide brimmed hat?
So Bell is obviously not buying it, so he pushes Bell out the way and starts trying to make his way onto the first floor of the house. At which point one of Seward's sons appears and tries to stop him. So Powell produces a revolver, presses it against one of, I think it's Frederick Seward's chest, but the revolver misfires.
Yeah.
So he pistol whips Frederick repeatedly and storms into Seward's room, where Seward's daughter and Seward's army nurse are there, who he draws a knife, cuts the army nurse on the arm, punches Seward's daughter in the face, at which point, and then leaps onto Seward and starts stabbing him. But the thing is, Seward is wearing a big metal neck brace, and most of the wounds deflect off this, but he does lacerate him in several places and he starts bleeding quite profusely.
What's the butler doing at this stage? He gets pushed to one side and he's just like brushing himself off like...
As
putting on his fake moustache again, like rats.
Since you mention it, the butler fled the house crying "murder, murder," which caused Powell's accomplice, who was holding their horses outside, to tie Powell's horse to a tree and take off. He panicked.
Yeah.
At this point, inside the house, August Seward storms into the room to find, obviously, and essentially grabs Powell and pulls him off his father. At which point,
How old is he?
Powell.
No, Augustus.
6.
No, Augustus is, I'd say, about Powell in his 20s.
Okay.
He's his younger son, as I remember.
Get off my dad!
But you'll regret that because Powell stabs Augustus repeatedly.
Oh.
Before fleeing the scene.
But I just love the fact that, like, I want to know the time between the pushing of the butler to the butler running murder. Like he pushes the butler out of the way, he just runs past and goes...
The butler
From my
knows
understanding, Saul, it was about the moment that the man gave up his doctor pretense and pulled a gun.
I want you to tell me about the part of the story where Bell manages to finally track down the original Dr. Payne, bring him to the house, and then there's a Payne show-off.
Yeah.
I wish the
Stand
story
off.
ended with like, you called for a doctor.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good point.
And, like, he turns around and the real Dr. Payne
And
is
his
there.
moustache is even more ridiculous.
Yeah,
The butler-
but real.
Yeah,
Like,
the butler went to bring the Payne.
Yeah. And he's just there like, he's like, I'm going to fix you up just so I can fuck you up again, son. And then they have a doctor off.
Call that a moustache.
Except one's not a doctor.
Exactly, he loses.
But anyway, so Powell
Where's your
flees
doctor?
the scene, finds his horse and rides off, but he doesn't know Washington very well, so he wanders for a few days. He is only caught because he returns to the boarding house of one Mary Surratt, who is the mother, I believe, of another one of the Wilkes Booth conspirators.
She was hanged, I remember.
She was hanged alongside Powell and 2 others.
Yeah.
He returns to her boarding house as the military police who were searching that boarding house are leaving. He had
got really bad timing.
Yeah.
Morning, Dr. Payne. Walk past.
He had left his hat at the scene.
Oh, definitely not Dr. Payne then. He
And
always wears
obviously,
his hat.
at the time, it was so unseemly for a gentleman to be seen out of doors with a hat. He had torn a sleeve off his jacket and fashioned it into a stocking cap. He'd also stolen a pickaxe and was trying to pass himself as a day labourer. So he arrived at the boarding house claiming he was there to dig a drain. They then examined his hands and realised that he'd never worked a day of manual labour in his life.
It was covered in blood from the stabbings.
There was blood on him. So he was obviously arrested A lot, and what I found crazy is that after, obviously, Lincoln was shot, people who had the tiniest connection to it were arrested, although not all of them were charged, but they were held for up to 40 days. One almost farcical example of this is an African-American boy, about age 13, whose name I forget, who held Wilkes Booth's horse outside the Ford Theatre, because obviously Wilkes Booth asked him to, was arrested in connection with the murder of President Lincoln.
That's gotta suck.
I've just imagined this 13-year-old boy being in a prison cell. This gruff, because again, this is
not actually a prison cell. They were taken aboard a class of ship called a Monitor. They were taken aboard US Navy warships anchored in the river.
Brilliant.
And at one point in their incarceration, they had full manacles and balls and chains. But at one point in the incarceration, Powell was suspected of trying to kill himself by bashing his head against the iron walls of his cell. Mm-hmm. So they had to wear these big cotton hoods in the summer heat for a long time. They were later removed, but Powell had to keep his on because there was a serious question as to whether he was insane. After when he was fleeing Seward's house, apparently yelled out, "I'm mad, I'm mad." And what I think a doctrine connection to a trial, which was a military tribunal, by the way,
was
so no
it
jury.
Dr. Payne?
I don't know.
He's insane, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, he probably was trying to pass himself off as the man's doctor literally an hour after he left.
I'm still on that 13-year-old kid. I'm imagining him being called into an interview room with some gruff-looking sheriff types from the West, and then being like, "So, horse holder are you?" And him being like, "Yes," and then just being like, I don't. You have to provide us with something if you want a plea deal.
I still love the idea that that they looked at the quote Dr. Payne's hands / day labourer. It was like, hasn't worked a day in his life.
Maybe
And
he's
there's blood
too good.
everywhere.
I wonder if he tried to pass off that he has worked many days in his life. He's just so good at it that he doesn't have any injuries.
Chafe at all.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's surprising that these hands were so unconvincing as labourer's hands, because he had been a Confederate soldier for several years. He lied about his age to enlist in the 2nd Florida Infantry, so he had to be 19. I think at the time he was about 16. He enlisted in 61. During his time, he was judged to be a very effective soldier. He claimed he always shot to kill, and he allegedly carried the skull of a Union soldier to use as an ashtray. He was wounded at Gettysburg, captured. During his captivity, he spent time working as a nurse, at which point he escaped from a military hospital with the aid of one Maggie Branson, who was supposedly infatuated with. He then joined a partisan cavalry regiment called Mosby's Rangers before joining the Confederate Secret Service. A year later, he was actually held on an espionage charge after physically assaulting a black maid in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. She accused him of espionage, but he got off by pulling a Claudius.
Just pretending to be an idiot.
He pretended to be stupid, and the Attorney General let him off. But essentially gave him an order that meant he had to be in a certain part of the United States. I think like Maine. But the thing is, the bit specifying where he had to be was in pencil, so he rubbed it out.
Imagine seeing that. I have a court-ordered mandate that says I can go wherever the fuck I want.
But one last thing I wanted, how much sympathy you want for, you wish to feel for this guy, I don't know. But apparently he took nearly 5 minutes to die on the scaffold.
Really?
Yeah, because Americans... certainly at that time, obviously no one hangs anyone in America now, well, not legally anyway. Americans, when they used hanging as a form of execution, didn't practice the same method of hanging the British did, which caused your neck to break, that you did die by strangulation on the scaffold. So apparently he and another one of the conspirators were hanging for about 5 minutes. At one point, his convulsions were so bad that his legs were brought up to the point where he looked like he was in a sitting position, obviously dangling on the end of a rope. And he was definitely distressed. He saw 2 priests before he died, and there were several attempts to declare him insane. He did try to kill himself at some points as well. But yeah, so that is the story of the attack on Secretary of State Seward and the difficult life, shall we say?
Yeah.
Whether he deserves much sympathy of Lewis Thornton Powell.
That's a new
Even though Powell was executed, obviously, as somebody who'd never had to study American history, I've never heard of him or nor the guy
Well, no,
that was attacked.
It's obviously it's the thing. It's Abraham Lincoln is the figure of that age.
Yeah.
And he's famous because he actually died. Seward, I should mention, did survive the assassination attempt.
Did his son?
Oh, he lost his son.
I found no mention of their death, so
Okay.
I think they all recovered, one way or another. In fact, that's something I should mention. Powell expressed remorse for stabbing Augustus, and he was the only one of the conspirators to actually make an official statement protesting Mary Surratt's innocence. In fact, his last words were that Mary Surratt should not be hanging with us.
Why did she get hanged? For
She refused to. I can't remember what it was, but she refused to do something.
Well, she was implicated in the conspiracy.
Yeah,
For
Used to
example,
not hang.
she claimed that her eyesight was poor and that she didn't recognise Powell in the boarding house. But at the time that they were in the boarding house with the military police, they were 5 feet apart under a fully lit lantern. So essentially, and because she was the mother of one of the serious conspirators, who was on the run at the time, so that might have been what she refused to disclose.
Yeah.
She was implicated in the conspiracy. And US conspiracy law certainly at that time had something called vicarious responsibility. So, for example, Powell was only attempted assassination of Secretary of State Seward, but because of his involvement in the conspiracy, could be implicated in the assassination of President
Right.
Lincoln.
I remember when I was researching for this episode, I saw the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, but we talked about it twice. Once, I think, I talked about him, and then you mentioned like the interesting facts surrounding.
Yeah, the guy he was with.
Yeah, that was
The
the
guy
guy.
was-
So I think
Halloween.
that night must be one of our most talked about days ever.
So I've also got a story that comes from America, from 1902, and it's about J.C. Penney opening his first store called the Golden Rule Store in Wyoming. If you aren't familiar with J.C. Penney as a brand at all, it's a
There's a lot of shaking heads in this room.
J.C.
That's Val's
Penney.
trademark.
It is,
Is
isn't it?
educating us in a really new way. It's really opening doors into our knowledge.
J.C. Penney is a chain of like malls in America, I
Okay.
believe. They originally started out as dry goods stores, but they're basically comparable to like Macy's and stuff like that. So you know when you hear about like
Miss,
yes,
what's a Macy's?
okay, J.C. Penney is like a Debenhams or a
Okay.
Harrods.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's not Harrods. It's a
Wrong
Debenhams.
one.
It's
So
a Debenhams.
I feel like people must have a perception that like Val is like our lifeline, that we live on like a Scottish island in the middle of like, you know, like Skegness or somewhere.
That's not in Scotland.
I thought it was, but anyway, Skellig. That's what I meant.
Skellig
Do you
was
want
in
to go
Ireland.
for? I was going to say, do you want to
Let's
go for
go
some
to
other?
character.
Me,
Shetlands.
Shetlands.
Isle
There
of
we go.
Skye,
Isle of Skye. I just feel like an island. Let's just say
near Scotland.
an island near Scotland, off the Scottish northern coast, that no one will ever know the name of because I don't fucking know it.
You're saying
Well,
I'm your
saying-
only lifeline.
We're like on this island with no concept of the outside world, and then you row up to us and you tell us what Macy's is, and we're there like, oh.
Is that in the 13 colonies?
I think J.C. Penney's is like J.C. Penney's is a little bit more like if M&S and Debenhams had a baby, in the sense that M&S kind of has some food and like more practical items.
Yeah.
But then there's also like a number of brands that sell clothes in J.C. Penney's. But basically, it's a really famous chain of stores in America. And I was
But like
really
from the sound, it's like stores, but they have stores
the
within them.
department stores, if you will.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so
Like say like Westfields in London
House
or
of
the
Fraser.
Oracle in Reading.
Yeah, like
Phrases.
the thing is that when I'm bringing up like House of Fraser or Debenhams or Harrods or Liberty,
Britishness. Any of our reviewers being like, not because obviously they're like, oh yeah,
They,
JC
to
Penney's,
me-
and then we're like British brands.
to
Like,
me, I just
brand British stuff.
they are too good.
Woolworths.
Like they're too posh. They're too expensive to be compared to JCPenney's.
Yeah, the problem is, see, when it goes down to the fact that without correct social classing and this whole everybody is equal malarkey, they really they struggle with the middle.
I know, we get you, Val. JCPenney's is the best American imitation.
Yeah, so JCPenney's is kind of like that. And the reason why, it never rose to, like, say, like the level of, say, Harrods or something like that. It's because the guy that was behind it always
Doesn't have
believed
the Queen's endorsement.
doesn't have the Queen's endorsement.
Why did they get rid of the pet shop?
Because they couldn't make sure that animals were well looked after. Especially in the olden days, they used to have exotic animals living there, and a lot of them were dying because the conditions of the store were just not good enough to handle it, and they couldn't hire.
Harrods is not good enough for those animals.
No, the animals aren't good enough for Harrods.
Don't be silly.
They lack the British Constitution.
British stoicism, in fact. Stiff upper lip and all that. Parakeet's like, this temperature's wrong for me, it's causing me to be infertile. Nonsense.
You know what? The temperature in India is wrong for the Englishmen, but we claimed it as ours anyway.
Through sweat and yellow fever, we took the world. We went to places clearly not designed for us and died en masse until the natives said, by Jove, they have a moral authority to rule us. Never mind the guns.
So JCPenney's is not as expensive, like it's not as high budget, I guess, as Harrods is. JCPenney's has always, and from the very beginning, been a more affordable place to shop, and there's a reason for that. JCPenney was born in 1875 as the 7th of 12 children to a very poor farming family.
What cruel village magistrate gave the poor family the surname Penny?
To be fair, it doesn't carry in America because if its surname was Cent.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So he was born.
British people would come all the way across the Atlantic to laugh at them, at the irony, and then sail back.
Yeah. Why did those strange Brits come over, guffaw at us, and then disappear in their carriage?
So he was born into a really poor family, and they were all pretty religious, and they lived by something called the Golden Rule. I'm sure you know what the Golden Rule is, but for those that don't know, the Golden Rule is the idea that you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So it's the idea that you should be decent to other people, and they will be decent right back. And so their family actually, as I said, they were a farming family, but at one point they ended up moving to Hamilton, which was a town, into a house to give their older children a chance of going to high school and getting an education. Because they were so poor, their dad told JC that he would have to be able to pay for his own clothing. And this was at the ripe age of 8.
What does JC stand for?
Jesus Christ.
I was thinking that. I was
Oh,
hoping.
No, it was
he
Jesse.
prayed to Jesus, and he went, Jesus, sorry, can't sponge off us anymore. You're gonna have to buy your own clothes. And Jesus was there like, dude.
No, he
Like-
named like you know, like the kind of in the Spanish Portuguese style. He named his son. So his name is Jesus Christ Penney.
Christ Penny.
Jesus Christ Penney.
Jesus Christ Penny.
JCP.
The Lord will come again, and he will be poor.
He was.
No.
Because he was hardly rich the first time around.
He was a humble carpenter. It fits. It all fits.
Yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm saying.
I think this time
We missed the second coming because he
supposed-
wasted his time setting up department stores.
He's supposed to come back like with fire and at the head of an army and legions of angels.
All right, this was Christ 1.1. All right.
What beta?
Yeah.
Beta. He's still working out the bugs.
You know, like, would you not, if you were, say, like, all right, guys, I'm gonna do my second coming, and someone's like, yo, Big JC, you know, it's been a while since you've been down. It's like, you're right. I'm gonna do a quick recce and see how the world's changed.
Yeah, because obviously him turning it with chariots of fire against, I don't know, modern military tactics might look a bit odd.
Okay, so in case you didn't like his surname, his middle name is Cash. His name is James Cash Penney.
That is a bullshit name. That is a bullshit name. This makes me
Did he
believe
pick
that
his own middle name?
Okay, this is
what was it Jason?
James Cash
James
Penney.
Cash Penney sounds like
a rapper.
it sounds like a fake name. Firstly, for like a budget car, like, you know, off the van kind of guy. Name's James Cash Penney. Got TVs. Don't ask where they came from.
Like when it's
I like it more that he's a SoundCloud rapper, but an English SoundCloud rapper that does
James Cash
ironic
Penney.
lyrics.
Yeah. I can afford soup. I can afford dinner if it's soup.
Okay, so
I hope you like soup, girl, because I got soup.
all right. So Jim Money Pittance.
let's come back to the real shocker here, is that the fact that his dad made him pay for his own clothes at the age of 8. So from the age of 8, he had to be an enterprising young man, and what he decided to do was that he started raising livestock in their house in Hamilton.
I just love the idea of just like, you need to find your own money, boy. He's like, certainly, father. And then just
I have a cow. It will live with us now.
It's like, where the fuck are you getting? So, I was like walking just with like, a cock and a chicken, just like, it shall begin.
I prepared, father. I have seeds. I've sown them under the floorboards. They will grow. I will rip up the floorboards when the crop is of sufficient height. As you were. And that's why he'd been just standing around all day watering the floor. We thought he had the hysteria. We thought just the hunger pains made him a bit doolally.
So he started raising animals in the house. He started planting fucking lettuce in the floorboards, and the neighbours started complaining of the smell and the noise, so he had to stop that. But essentially, he, from the age of 8, tried to support himself, and then has been working at the family farm for the whole, I think he continued working at the farm until the age of, I want to say 23. But although he's always wanted to be a lawyer, and about 6 weeks before his father unfortunately died, he got him a job at a dry goods store, which is where he got his start. And the store was owned by a couple of people who also really bought into the Golden Rule as an idea. I think it was actually called the Golden Rule
Club.
Stores. And his dad said before he died, he said, "Jim will make it. I like the way he started out." He was really proud of his son.
This guy sounds like the stupid stories they say on The Apprentice. Like, they're like, the intro comes in like, James Cash Penney. I raised lettuce under my own floorboards when I was 8. Had to buy my own clothes. Made my dad proud. I raised cows in the bathtub. I could sell corn to the Cornish.
But one thing that you got to get right is the Golden Rule.
Yeah. I've got my golden rule, and I won't be taken down. That investment is already mine.
Because I'll only be taken down if I took someone else down first. Because that's the Golden Rule.
Oh, I just gave it away. Shit.
JC did a really, really good job in his original job with those 2 individuals that really subscribed to the golden rule. And he was doing so well in that job, despite the fact, because obviously with his father dying was very devastating to him. He still continued working really hard, and the owners of the store liked him so much that they liked his work ethic that they basically offered him a third partnership deal if he was to move away and open another shop as part of their chains.
Third.
And he
Dragon's Den stuff.
And he carried on that idea, and when he ended up opening the store, it did really, really well because he was so hardworking, and he was so touched by the fact that they put that much trust in him that when they decided that they wanted to leave the business, they no longer wanted to own this chain of stores. He ended up actually buying them from them, and he basically, with those original, I want to say, 5 stores around Wyoming, was able to create the original kind of chain, the original link that became the chain of department stores that is known as JC Penney. And what he did differently as a business, and what made him more successful than his competitors, is that he really stressed to his employees to put the importance into each individual customer, make sure you have really good relationships, like personal relationships. So being a local, like your local JC Penney, made when the Golden Rule stores started opening up, they used to write about it in newspapers. People would get excited because of the fact that it was the place to be. And also another thing on a kind of internal level that he did was that he trained his managers. He said that their responsibility was to find one of their employees and train them up to be the next manager to start the new store. So basically they had this kind of mentoring idea. The managers were called manager partners, and their role was to find and train a good man, and they were called a chain of good men. He was really good to his employees and the customers, which is why in 1929 he actually, when the economic crash happened, he ended up borrowing against his life insurance to make sure that he was still able to pay his employees. As I said, he was born in 1875, and he died at the ripe age of 95 years old.
Wow.
Leaving behind $35 million. I thought it was an interesting story to discuss because JCPenney's are a very famous chain of department stores, maybe not to the people in this room, but they are internationally well known. And
We ran
when
out of females
actually
years ago.
it's gotten to the point of like JC Penney has spread so much that if you were to Google JC Penney, you would get the store, you would not get the person. It's in fact like kind of difficult to try and look it up, but it's really worth it. It's a really interesting person. And that was my story, which means it's now time for James.
I have a story for you about...
Good, I'm glad that you have one, James. That was the idea of this
Okay.
podcast.
Sorry guys, couldn't be bothered this week.
Can we over this week? I have a story. It's called Spot the Dog. Anyway, spotted a ball, bounced around. Everyone thought he was an idiot.
Why?
Because it was a square. So, we're going to a swell old time. A gay old time, we'd say. 1945, Germany.
What was happening there and then?
Who could say, I'll tell you what was happening? Nothing good. So,
Nope.
I am going to ask you, do you know which of Germany's towns and cities was the most destroyed ever?
Dresden.
Yeah.
No.
Not Dresden.
Hamburg.
No.
Berlin
Alone.
It is the town of Friesleute
was the most destroyed
was
German
the most
town.
destroyed German town ever.
I guess by percentage, because obviously
By
Dresden,
percentage.
I imagine, was
Yeah.
bigger.
Do you know who did it?
The Russians,
No.
the Bulgarians,
No.
The
The
Germans.
Italians.
Okay. The Canadians.
Okay.
The
Canada.
sneaky.
What do they do? Set beavers on it?
They set fire to it.
Fiery beavers?
Nope, just fire.
Oh.
So,
Jonah, please stop talking about stuff that you're into, okay?
what?
On the
Fiery
podcast.
Canadian bush, beaver bush.
Canadian redheads. Email me at
So, it was the 4th Canadian Armoured Division. So, because it was a very small town, about 4,000 people had already moved out of the surrounding countryside around, so on April the 11th and the 12th. And the town was defended by about 200 paratroopers. Fallschirmjäger, which had long since stopped dropping out of planes for the Germans and were now just kind of light infantry.
So just troopers.
But they were paratroopers.
Yeah, simply Jaeger.
Yeah. So
Well,
they
it's
were
hunter.
of the battalion RAB of the 7th German Parachute Division. They repelled the first attack on April 13th, and the attack wasn't actually that major. So they suffered 2 dead and 19 wounded. There was no record of German losses.
Not at that time,
Not
no.
at this time. So the general in command is a man called Chris Vokes. So he then ordered a resumption of the attack on the next day by the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders of Canada, and these guys were commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Frederick E. Wiggle. So Wiggle,
Wiggles
there is only
way
one
in.
G in Wiggle, but I'm calling it Wiggle.
So it could possibly be Wiggly. but
Wiggly?
We're calling him Wiggle.
We're calling him Wiggle.
Wiggles.
So Wiggle decides to do a night attack on April 13th.
Just him?
Pardon? So, no,
He wiggled under the wire.
he decides. Well, he orders his men to move at night, should I say, to attack at dawn on April 14th.
So a night march.
So it's a night march into position. So there's about 800 men, and the aim was to, unsurprisingly, gain the element of surprise on these 200 Germans who were in the town. It was undetected, and it all seemed to be going well. Old Colonel Wiggle and 20 of his best men, 20 good men, and Wiggle.
A chain of good men, in fact.
A chain of good men stayed behind his tactical kind of command company just south of the town. The other kind of men under his command attacked the town on the morning of April 14th. They made pretty good progress, and the paratroopers either retreated or were captured. However, Wiggle's headquarters south of the main battle came under attack, and a small detachment of German paratroopers essentially stumbled upon it. So some people have said that they were returning from a patrol, others said that they were sent out there, and gunshots were obviously heard, and it was not known who fired first.
Han Solo.
Han Solo fired
Usually.
first, yeah.
He usually fires first.
In this brief skirmish, Wiggle was killed. Wiggle was
The
killed.
bullet wiggled its way to him.
Yeah.
Couldn't escape that G.
But he was killed by supposedly a burst of fire from a machine pistol, and a couple of others were killed by grenade. There was a guy who actually, during this attack, survived a direct gunshot wound through the head.
A lucky man.
Lucky man. But Wiggle.
Or an unlucky man. Maybe
Yeah.
he did it on purpose.
One Lance Corporal was able to man the radio, to tell people that they were under attack, and he broadcast the fact that Wiggle had been killed. and requested immediate reinforcements.
It's like, wiggle down, wiggle down.
Yeah. And the reinforcements did arrive and beat off the German paratroopers. This is where it gets sad. Despite the radio message saying that they had come under attack from German paratroopers and a patrol, General Vokes sent out essentially he had been informed that Wiggle had been killed by a civilian, and he ordered a reprisal immediately.
What the fuck?
And he said, and this is a direct quote from Vokes, "A first-rate officer of mine, for whom I had a special regard and affection, and in whom I had a particular professional interest because of his talent for command, was killed. Not merely killed, it was reported to me, but sniped in the back. I summon my GS-01. Mac, I roared to him, I'm going to raise that goddamn town." End quote. Immediately after this, individual units and soldiers began burning the town to the ground in revenge for the colonel. After this order came through from the General Vokes, they systematically started burning this town down, and they set it down by means of flamethrowers mounted to wasp carriers. The flames were clearly visible far and wide during the night of April 14th and 15th. When the fire was burned out, armoured bulldozers raised the remaining walls, and the resulting rubble was loaded onto trucks to reinforce the local roads, to then permit them to bear the weight of Canadian tanks moving past. According to German estimates, 85 to 90% of the town was destroyed over the course of the reprisal.
Is there anything on civilian casualties?
This is the thing. It's very up in the air about civilian casualties, because the Canadians claim that there wasn't any, that the civilians had been evacuated, but there are reports of there being civilians littering the ground while they were burning it.
Come on, Canada.
So, yeah, which actually brought on to an interesting thing, the fact that the Canadians and the Germans did not spare one another. And this wasn't the first time.
I wonder why. Was it?
Why
the
that?
distance?
I mean, what was the importance of the town to begin with for them to be there?
It was just on the way to Berlin.
Okay.
You know.
Is it what to do? Is it to do like the Dieppe raid? I don't know. I know a lot of Canadians died. It was like a practice run for D-Day.
And this is 1945.
I know, but like the Dieppe raid was in 43.
Oh, what the reason why the Germans and the Canadians?
Yeah, because I can't fathom any long-standing
hatred between
national
the two sides.
grievances. Yeah.
But yeah, so the town was just utterly destroyed. Like, yeah. And
Wow.
not only destroyed, but, we're talking like Rome and Carthage level destroyed, where the buildings were bulldozed and, again, used to repair roads so they could move tanks along. And old Wiggle was shot.
So that's another little old Allied war crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that leaves Saul to finish us off on for today in history.
Well, the thing is, the year that I'm talking about is 1953. But, so basically 1953, the CIA started to give unwilling subjects LSD in a search for mind control drugs.
MKUltra.
MKUltra. But the fact we can carry it on because
What,
basically...
MKUltra?
No.
No, we've got tabs now. Everyone space out.
No, because no, the German scientists, POWs, obviously were given the chance to come to America, drop all charges, and work for the CIA.
Because of course, it was Germans during the Second World War who developed amphetamines.
Yeah.
To keep their soldiers awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I was looking into more of like how it started and what kind of things that they were doing, like kind of more of like what experiments. Because they had one of them was Operation Midnight Climax, which
We've all
been there.
Well, I mean, it was basically operatives were posing as prostitutes, and they would lure clients back to hotel rooms that were CIA, basically observation rooms where they would have double-sided glass, and what they'd do is they would force the person to take tons of LSD and just observe them.
Wow.
So that was kind of starting off. By the way, because they all got cool operation names. Operation Paperclip was the one of getting the German scientists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Would you rather be assigned to Operation Paperclip or Operation Midnight Climax? If someone came you 2 dossiers and went pick, you'd be like Midnight.
I don't think I'm boring enough. I'd go for Paperclip.
Would you?
You'd be like, what's it
Seriously.
holding together?
Yeah. What's it gonna? Am I gonna just pop up and tell people that they're doing something wrong and ask them if they want help?
It's like the 4th episode now that we've been
You would
talking
regret
about
that,
stupid
Jonah.
paperclip.
You'd be sitting there in a room with Albert von War Criminal, and him being there like, yeah, so basically I got away with it all because I'm very clever. And then over in the other room you can see them be like, lads on tour, prostitutes, LD, and you're there like, tell me more.
Well, I don't.
Well, it's also
I don't
the fact
think
that,
I would have. I guess. Well, hear me out. If I was signed to Midnight Climax,
You'd have to solicit people.
well, I can't solicit, obviously.
Oh, Jonah, I don't know about that.
Well, not in 50s America, I can't. Not very easily.
Why?
Because homosexuality wasn't quite legal.
Jonah, I think
Homosexuality has been around for a very long time.
I know, but
why are we assuming that Jonah has to be a
Why
gay
are you
prostitute?
gay? Yeah, well, you
Why are
assume that.
assuming gay prostitute?
all right, fuck me.
No, because that's gay.
Now who's the homophobe? Thank you, Saul, for taking that bullet. But
The 50s are over, you prick!
on the assumption that I wouldn't be assigned as to solicit people.
Or to be gay.
You came in like a bully. It's like, I wouldn't be designed to solicit people, obviously, because you're like, yeah, gay.
You gay boy.
Gay boy.
No, because I said, or to be gay. Like, because soliciting could be men or women, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, just to put out that it was
Regardless.
generally female operatives.
Yeah,
luring men.
You see?
Hey, well, they might need to see the effect of LSD on old ladies who are desperate.
Okay, shall I go into it?
He's turned his back on me.
We'll just ignore that and go. So one of the experiments that they did was actually to give daily doses. So they gave daily doses of LSD to people just to see the prolonged effect of it. As well as one thing that the CIA did was they, because obviously they needed to spike people's drinks and things like that, the CIA hired magicians to teach their operatives.
Magicians?
Yeah, because
I love anything to do with the CIA. It's just so like Benny Hill and just so like it's like there should be a show just called the CIA and just be like, this is what they actually did.
But imagine being that magician, just like you. So you're like the CIA have contacted you, like we need your help. You come in like spike people's drinks. I need you to teach my operatives to spike people's drinks.
Yeah, we know you dedicated a lot of time to learning the craft. How do we get this thing?
How do we get a bit rapey?
Yeah.
Because there's no way you got that glamorous assistant through legitimate means. Go on, how do you slip her the old 1-2?
Speaking of the old 1-2, there's another experiment to do with uppers and downers. This is where it gets, starts to go a bit not as funny, because basically what they used to do was they would force people to take downers and get them to the point where they were almost asleep, and then they would give them uppers, and they would do this repeatedly until they basically got the right level where they were just about conscious enough where they would be easier to extract information, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So it's basically getting it, so you know, like when you have like just woken up and you're a bit susceptible to the outside, like people can, you've seen videos on YouTube where people have given people bananas and been like, there's a phone call for you, and you're like, because your brain's not awake yet. So that's basically what they would do.
Well, I guess it's a legitimate.
The CIA didn't do that though. The CIA just like keep people up and down.
Have a banana.
Just in the deepest vaults of Langley, they just have this guy napping on a sofa, and one of them goes, phone for you. He's like, yeah, it is a banana. And then he looks around, there's loads of like guys with clipboards like behind a one-way mirror, like.
But in all seriousness, sleep deprivation is
it's really good for interrogation.
An oft-used interrogation
I love this
tactic.
because you just told me that the CIA found a very, very complicated, expensive, and absolutely unnecessary way to get sleep deprivation.
We need them to be sleep deprived real fast.
Yeah, and with drugs and downers, whereas to go cut to the Soviet Union, they just walk in and they just blast Kalinka on headphones and leave you in a room for 72 hours, come back and ask you questions, and because what happens with sleep deprivation, I think
You can no longer fabricate.
You can no longer fabricate. At 72 hours of sleep deprivation, you can no longer fabricate false information. So
Pay attention, listeners, lest you fear abduction by the authorities.
So you can't imagine new stuff. So what the Soviets would do is they'd put you in a room with Kalinka blasting your eardrums out for 72 hours. They would then take you away and they would interrogate you, and if they knew you were lying, you can only repeat the same lie that you had already made up prior to. And what I mean by that is to the letter. you can't fabricate on your own lies anymore. So you can just murmur the same phrase you've been repeating before, and they can obviously deduce you're lying because you can't elaborate. Whereas if you're recalling a memory at 72 hours of sleep deprivation, you can still recall memory. So you can elaborate on something. So say, for example, they want to know your location. If you say I was at the library, and you've been saying that all for the last 3 days, when they drag you in that sleep deprived and they say, where were you? You will simply regurgitate the sentence, at the library. I was at the library. They then ask you, who are you with? And you'll just say, I was at the library. Because that's all you can do, because you're not imagining anything new. Whereas if you were telling the truth, you could be like, I was at the library with Jonah, and they know that's the truth, and that's what they do. The CIA had just a wild ride of drug trips and prostitutes to come to that conclusion. So...
Well, I mean,
So if you ever get kidnapped, make sure that you get plenty of sleep so you can lie to them and find your way out of the situation.
But they will legit try and stop. What they used to do back in the day before, like headphones and stuff. During the Second World War, the NKVD would just put you in a room so small you could only stand up in it.
Yeah.
And there would be a guard posted outside who would yell at you whenever you closed your eyes.
But
apparently, some prisoners of the NKVD perfected a technique of sleeping with their eyes open.
Just also
standing up.
Just also going into another torture techniques, and the fact that the CIA
Consider this a tutorial now.
How to be a good Soviet oppressor state, because they would also actually put rags under your chair that would collect your scent while you were sitting on it being interrogated, and then they would keep them in jars for sniffer dogs, and they would never get rid of them. They'd preserve all of these small cloths in vaults, and this was in every kind of KGB, NKVD headquarters. These were in the chairs, so any person who was ever brought into there for questioning, they had their scent in case they ever needed to hunt them with dogs.
I was just going to say that there was another experiment the CIA did that basically dosed people up and then basically repeated just one word thousands and thousands of times, and it just apparently it caused amnesia and dementia. So there you go.
Well,
good experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in previous podcasts we've discussed before about CIA, offing people. But yeah, there was a Frank Olson, he basically was a biological warfare specialist. He quit on the basis of ethics. He discovered what was kind of happening, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm out." A week later, he was found dead. He
Shocking.
had fallen out of a 13-story window. From a hotel.
Oh, how did that happen?
What a clumsy man he truly was. All these years, do you think you know a man? All these years not falling out of a 13 floor window.
I guess you never know.
You can't trust people.
Yeah, it was at the hotel in Pennsylvania.
Did they at least open the window before they pushed him out?
Please, CIA, just this once.
Because this is the thing, much as we riff on the CIA, there was a case, it was a Hungarian defector.
Oh, yeah.
Was defenestrated. And the KGB claimed he threw himself
out
of
the
a
window.
closed window.
I was going to say the word defenestrated.
Defenestrated for everyone means to be thrown out of a window.
I was basically, when I found out this, I was there like, finally I get to use the word defenestrated. It's such a lovely word. But well,
but it's so like, it sounds like the study of ferns or something. But what it really is being lobbed through glass.
It's based on the French word for window.
No, he was defenestrated. So
it's thrown through a window. Though.
Yeah, but the thing is,
for God's sake,
I had such faith in them that they one time they would open
it gets
the
even
window.
better. It gets even better. The fact that the body. They did a second autopsy. The first one, obviously, they were like suicide. They did a second autopsy, and then they realised that the body was slightly bludgeoned to death before being thrown through
Just
the
a little
window.
bit. Just a little bit.
Major bludgeoning, yeah.
I love the idea of the CIA. They're so. I honestly imagine this is my opinion of Langley. It's just a man sitting in a room with both his fingers in a Chinese finger trap, just looking at it and just going, help.
Okay,
I'm imagining this assassination actually went down as two CIA guys got really cross that he'd knocked, went there cross, beat him up out of anger, and then were like, oh fuck, what do we do with the body?
Oh yeah, they beat him to death. And I'm right, cool. Okay, what were we supposed to do again? Make it look like a suicide? He just bludgeoned himself to death.
Well,
no, we're gonna have to do so. Throw him out the window.
I left my college ring on. Oh fuck.
James. Just the cherry on top, just to finish the story. This is the end.
Yeah.
So the reason why we know all about, well, not all about MKUltra, but we know a fair bit about it is
Someone accidentally mailed the dossier to their aunt.
No, but it was during in 1973 with Watergate when obviously there was investigations. Richard Helms, the head of the CIA at the time, ordered the destruction of all documents, and they did. However, there were also those are documents that were misfiled.
Of course.
Really?
Yeah, and that's how they got out.
Of course.
So they
I love
filed
'em.
they
Like-
filed their classified stuff as not classified and didn't burn it.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
Who looks at the code name MKUltra and goes,
Can't be too
yeah,
serious.
he looks and goes, Bill, is this classified or not? He's like, does it say classified?
But I mean,
No.
this was a proper cache of documents.
I know, it's just...
See, I was
we know a
thinking-
fair bit about
I
MK.
thought-
Someone saw Midnight Climax and was like,
I
I'll
want to
say
read that.
that.
Oh, this might
Oh yeah, it's almost like that's too saucy. Like put
Yeah.
that in the classified one.
that was my fanfic.
Yeah. Oh, I
honestly thought you were going to say that Watergate was happening to the CIA, just like as a smoke screen dropped MK.
I almost want to put out.
They
Right?
tried to hide that.
There may be
I-
a point where I wind up suspiciously dead, and I want you to know that when I defenestrate myself out windows, the CIA killed me because I make fun of them so much. I want that to be the theory, because they're this beautiful group of boys who run around, and girls, running around squealing and throwing money at every problem, and then not understanding why it doesn't work, and then running off and just doing weird things while no one's looking.
It's like, Mr. President, this man's made our. He's now claimed to the top of America's most wanted. He's really mean to us.
Well, I mean, basically, like, yeah, so,
keeps making fun of
so
us.
we
We tried bribing him.
So,
it didn't
MK. So just to reiterate, MKUltra basically took prisoners of war and basically let them go.
Nazi.
Nazi prisoners of war let them go. They figured out that there's better ways to torture people. They failed to kill a person properly, and then released all their documents by accident.
And if
All
that
in
doesn't
all.
say, if it doesn't say, job well done, CIA stamp of approval on it, like break into your own hotel on your own sovereign land and get caught doing it, I don't know what else does, really.
Yeah.
But I love it because...
Failed to make assassination look like an accident, catch up with the Russians, and aid some Nazis.
Yeah, and it's just like, all again,
all
it's
in a day's work.
all a day's work and the CIA. It's like you could honestly make something just called It's Always Sunny in Langley, and you would get an accurate portrayal of the people who were in control of the CIA.
With Danny DeVito being the head of the CIA.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
throw money at every problem, and then just because it's just buffoonery. It's just
Yeah, so that's mine. So on this day, MKUltra started off.
brilliant. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So good. Okay.
Sorry to all the people who have crippling mental health and neurological damage
But
because of it, but actually it's pretty bad. Like, you were damaged by the most inept secret intelligence.
Who control Hollywood, so are supposedly the best. Like they have good branding because all the films like the CIA's getting involved, black side operation, but just saying dark looking words. In reality, there's a guy like, I'm from the CIA and I just appeared to have discharged my weapon at my own foot while I was trying to nick a coke out of a vending machine.
Right.
Right, before the Predator drone gets overhead and wipes us out, let's wrap up this episode.
Okay.
Move on to our next segment.
No, goodbye. We finished.
So-
CIA.
Everyone run.
So that was Today in History, which means it's now time for Famous Facts. Famous Facts is a segment where I research the people who happen to be born on the day of our recording, look up some interesting facts about them and their lives, and ask the boys to match up the facts with the person. Therefore, Famous Facts. So let's meet our people. So in 1738, we have William Cavendish Bentinck, the 3rd Duke of Portland, a British Whig and Tory politician during the late Georgian era. 1866, we have Anne Sullivan. She was an American teacher best known for being the instructor and lifelong partner to Helen Keller. 1891, we have B.R. Ambedkar, the Indian jurist, economist, politician and social reformer, independent India's first law and justice minister, architect of the Constitution of India, founding father of the Republic of India. 1889, we have Arnold Toynbee. He was a British historian, a philosopher of history, author of numerous books, and research professor of the international history at London School of Economics at King's College and the University of London. 1961, we have Robert Carlyle, a Scottish actor from films like Trainspotting, TV shows like Stargate Universe, and Once Upon a Time.
Played Hagrid. That's Robbie Coltrane.
Okay, and lastly, we have 1977. Would anybody like to guess who the last person is?
Sarah Parallelogram.
It is Sarah Parallelogram, American actress, producer, and entrepreneur.
I
Sarah
know
Michelle
because when I
Gellar.
looked up what...
Wait, I can't remember. What's her
Sarah
actual name?
Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, okay.
No,
That
Sarah
was-
Parallelogram. Are you sure? What are they?
So, those are people. Here are facts. This person converted to Buddhism later on in their life.
B.R. Ambedkar.
Yeah, I was.
What the man who studied India says.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Sorry,
say,
I really shouldn't have gone first there, but it's B.R. Ambedkar.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I was gonna say BO anyway because. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anyone else on this list.
It's a worldwide religion.
Helen Keller.
Yeah, but no,
She cannot see out, but she sees inwards.
no,
It's Anne Sullivan, who's not Helen Keller.
It
Anne
was,
Sullivan is her teacher.
The one that tried to
Well, I
explain
thought that was
what
a pretty
flowers were.
witty joke, nonetheless. So
No, it
you
wasn't
know,
that witty.
oh,
Anyway, carry on.
fuck you piece of shit traitor.
Oh.
Across the
Yeah,
mic at
BR for all.
you. Saul has to go first. He's the reigning champion. Those are the rules that we've enforced on Jonah.
And I just broke.
This person starred in a music video for the band Oasis. Is it William Cavendish Bentinck, alive in 1738 in the late Georgian era? Is it Anne Sullivan, an American teacher also born in a time before any real cameras? B.R. Ambedkar?
Carlisle.
Toynbee?
Shut the fuck up.
You
It's
can't
him
constrain
first.
me.
Val, enforce some goddamn order on your game.
Alright, I'll change my answer.
Yeah.
Okay, Saul. what would you
Cavendish.
like? Saul,
I'm
what would
gonna
you like?
go. I was gonna go Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I'm Robert Carlyle.
Robert
Because
Carlisle.
Oasis are like northern, and he's Scottish, and they're always fast allies because they keep letting them into York. The Scots keep letting the Northerns keep letting the Scots into York. I still hold Plantagenet beef. Don't get me wrong. The point is that I don't know. She just seems she's off doing America Buffy stuff. You know. I just feel like Oasis would get Robert Carlyle.
Train spotting, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good point.
This person lost their family in the space of 3 years. Their entire family died or disappeared in the space of 3 years.
I'm gonna say Anne Sullivan.
I like Saul's instinct here. Anne Sullivan.
I'm contemplating suicide. Firstly, so I'm going Anne Sullivan.
Okay. This person has a black belt in Taekwondo.
Geller.
Fuck off. Get her.
Robert Carlyle. I might as well just swap them over.
So parallelogram.
The parallelogram has an edge.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, she is a slayer.
So Saul, are you going for?
I'm just saying.
I have to go
it's
for
different.
for Robert
Okay.
Carlyle.
And then the
'cause-
last one, I guess. What we got two more, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
got. I can't even-
I think we all have Bentinck.
Yeah, we all have the politician boy.
It reveals like this person is really
We've
famous for using internet and cars and stuff.
Okay.
We've got Arnold and William.
Oh yeah, Arnold Toynbee too.
Okay. This person briefly worked for the British intelligence.
Arnold Toynbee.
Yeah.
I'm saying that too.
yeah.
Which I guess means that you agree that the person who has a style of vase named after them is William Cavendish. Is that
Yeah, Cavendish
Yeah.
face. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So those were our facts, and those were our people.
So me and Jonas said the same thing for everything.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because I was just shadowing him. I genuinely agree. That's why I wanted him to shut up so I could go next.
Okay,
and look
so
like it
the-
was my idea.
So the first fact. Sorry.
That's why he does it. That's why he does it, so he gets the credit. But
So the first fact was that this person converted to Buddhism later on in their life. You guys are correct. It was B.R. Ambedkar.
Because he was untouchable.
Yep,
So
that's
he
right.
would never get anything from Hindus. So and it's quite
Yeah.
common actually for untouchables to convert.
He had to have water poured for him from a higher, somebody of a higher caste, because he wasn't allowed to touch a water jug or anything like that. He had to sit in like this. It's called a gunny sack, but essentially it's like a burlap sack that you sit in class, because he wasn't allowed to touch anything. He converted to Buddhism later on in life because Buddhism didn't stand for the same kind of caste segregation.
Yeah.
And he was the first Indian to pursue a doctorate in economics.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, and I think Val's already mentioned, but he penned the Indian Constitution, which is interesting in the field of human rights, because there's big debate as to where do human rights come from. And I think the Indian Constitution was the first in which the people grant themselves human rights. This is, we, the people of India, grant unto ourselves sacred and inviolable rights, human rights.
cool.
Whereas like obviously the only other Because otherwise you say, well, where do human rights come from? What's the justification for them? You say, oh, well, there's a moral reason to have human rights. Well, people's morals vary, and they're based around religions, and certain religions, say, especially if you look at their older codexes, so the Quran, the Bible, and so on, deny to people of certain genders or ethnicities what we consider equal human rights.
Yeah.
So how do you find? Because it's the kind of thing that if you just assume human rights, then you can lose them very easily. So you have to find a legal basis for them in order to defend them. So like human rights violations, you require a law to be broken so you can try someone in, say, The Hague.
Yeah.
So, but the Indian constitution, the people of India grant themselves their own human rights.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Shout out to my friend Ollie for teaching me that.
So fact number 2 was that this person starred in a music video for Oasis.
That's where we deviated.
That is where you deviated,
I'm wrong.
because it was Robert Carlyle. Yeah, he was in a music video for Oasis.
Because
It was one of them. It was a 50-50.
I don't know. It could have been old Cavendish.
The thing is, everyone was dead when Oasis was around.
Even
Did you know that Robert Carlyle once played Hitler?
Yeah, I've seen that, and it's really bad. It's really, really bad. Like, he plays Hitler
In The Rise of Evil.
in The Rise of Evil, and he plays Hitler in the most frothing, gibbering, obviously mad, which I don't like because it's set about how he gets to power, and I'm like, the whole point is that he didn't act
Like
that.
He wasn't NC Hitler.
He wasn't NC Hitler. He was persuasive and charismatic, which I think is more important to educate people, because that's what they should be looking out for.
Yeah, no one would elect the man in downfall.
No, the point is that I'm not trying to sit here and tell people Hitler was not a fucking evil man who killed millions of people or led to the deaths of millions of people. He didn't do it personally, but that tit for tat when you kill that many people. The point is that teaching people that he was bipolar, hooked up on amphetamines, and as far from human as possible, in my opinion, is not what we should take from everything. We should take the fact that he was a human being who didn't have charismatic human being who convinced people through the power of his arguments and by promising them what they wanted short term to get what he wanted long term. And the point is that teaching people he was this caricature of a man.
Oh yeah, look out for the lunatics! Don't vote for them.
That's
people
obvious.
common sense take that.
Sense.
But the demagogues and
Yeah, exactly. And my point is that's what. And in that film, he plays Hitler like all he does is talk about how much he wants to, kill Jews and exterminate people, and he froths left, right, and centre.
Really?
The whole film. And
I haven't seen it.
And it's like, no, that's like that is that to me is a Punch and Judy show caricature.
A choice.
It's
This person lost their family in the space of 3 years. You've all gone for Anne Sullivan, and you are correct.
hey, it's all on the money.
No, it's because she was alone when she was looking after.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
So what
I
happened?
just assumed that everyone was dead.
What happened to Anne was that her mother died when she was 8 years old. Her father left 2 years later, and then because her and her brother were orphaned, they were put up in this house, and he died 3 months later due to an illness. He had an issue with his hip, I think. Did you know that she was also blind due to a trachoma, and that several operations significantly improved her eyesight when she was actually living at the school for the blind? And when Anne Sullivan came in for a job interview to be Helen Keller's teacher and carer, she actually began the interview by arguing with the parents about the Civil War and the fact that their family once owned slaves.
Oh, fair play.
coming in strong.
Hi,
Controversial. Controversial.
There's got to be
something.
something. There's got to be something to be
make us
said
stand
in
up.
in an interview for showing yourself as not willing to grovel.
Yeah,
Exactly.
not Quisling.
Yeah.
Oh, Victor.
Essentially, I imagine they end like this heated debate over was it states' rights or slavery, and just like, and that's how you know I'm not a yes woman.
So this person has a black belt in Taekwondo. Boys, you've gone
Robert
for
Carlyle,
Sarah Michelle Gellar. Wasn't Robert Carlyle.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. Sarah Michelle Gellar, I couldn't find
Only
any
that fact
more
came first.
exciting facts about her. Other than the fact that she's got a black belt in Taekwondo and that
But
she
I exhausted them all. With
She
my
married
feet.
Fred.
exactly you did.
She married
And then-
Fred from Scooby Doo. I told
She
you.
did exactly. That was one of the facts. And she She didn't use a voice double in the musical episode of Buffy, even though she had the option because she wanted to do it for real.
Can she sing?
Sorry,
No.
for the last two we asked who was the person who briefly worked for British intelligence. You guys have gone for Arnold Toynbee, all of you, and you are all correct.
I didn't actually know that, but I'm glad I said it with such confidence that you thought I did.
It's going to be because
it's not the other one.
British intelligence didn't exist.
There were spies.
No, not like that. It was made. It was a boys' club when it was first made. But
Yeah,
it's
but there were
officially-
spies.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, but
guarantee it wasn't. It wouldn't have been recorded and mentioned.
It's known that Sir Francis Walsingham was a spy.
Yeah, but
It was
Val
speculated
said-
that Christopher Marlowe was a
you
spy.
can't undo my reasoning. You're sitting here going like, well, I counter you, but it's my reasoning and why I said it. And it makes sense.
Even though it was potentially flawed.
It was potentially flawed, but it wasn't flawed. Because we know he's referring to...
You don't know. Val hasn't confirmed that. Val, can you confirm or deny James's assumptions?
I wasn't listening to them.
Fucking brilliant.
So Arnold
James is arguing that it could only have been Arnold Toynbee because he was the one alive at the time when there were organised branches of military intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I argue that you did not confirm or deny necessarily that it had to be the organised branch and that spies existed way before there were formalised intelligence bodies.
I believe what his responsibility for British intelligence was essentially handling foreign affairs and
Yes, but
understanding
there's no
cultures.
such
But okay,
thing.
but it
There's no
regardless,
such
it
thing
doesn't
on
matter.
record as British intelligence prior to... Well,
Okay.
it wasn't a thing. It was a drinking club at first.
But regardless, he did hold a position with the British intelligence and he did help them using his knowledge and understanding of different cultures. He was a very prolific historian, and because of the fact that his work became so influential, in 1947 Time magazine actually put him on the front cover, which was pretty novel because he's a historian.
Everyone's been on the front cover of Time magazine.
A
Have
historian?
you, Saul?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Mothman found.
No,
It's just you in a bin.
It's because there literally was a Time magazine of you.
Oh
As in
yeah.
everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
basically, technically, everyone's been on Time magazine.
He, speaking of Hitler,
So wins again.
Toynbee got to meet and interview him. And our last fact was that this person has a style of vase named after them. I thought that you guys are uncultured pigs and wouldn't know that there's
I mean,
a Cavendish
you're not wrong.
vase. Because I didn't know that there was a Cavendish vase. I was like, oh, I don't know it. Then the boys surely must know.
Well, you're foreign. So.
Yeah, I am foreign. This
You would know.
Did you know?
Representative of the House of Lords.
Did you know that this person is so posh? Not just because they have a
killed them.
not just because they have a style of vase named after
I
them, which is
know.
pretty pretentious. They have held a title of every degree of British nobility ever.
Princess.
Yeah.
I think
I have been the Queen.
I think you find that to be British royalty.
Oh,
Nobility
sorry.
is the rank below
Duchess.
monarchy.
So Duke, Marquess,
Duchess.
Earl, Viscount, and Baron. He's done all of them.
I didn't get baronet, but that was only around during Charles I's reign.
Are you
when
sure?
he was, like, giving money.
Are you sure it wasn't his doctor that told him he was Baron?
Alright, so just come for the man's fucking virility, why don't you?
with a dad
You
joke.
can't come
Yeah.
for it, Saul, because he's
I didn't
actually...
even realise that I made a pun by saying come for, because I'm not Saul.
Okay, and you can't come for his virility because he's actually the great, great, great grandfather of our Queen, Quizzy Lee. And with that-
Yeah.
Electric Boogaloo.
I was the loser last week for Who Let Them Near a Keyboard, and Saul, it is your
I am the loser
prize
this week.
place.
He's
But
back,
however,
back in his clubhouse.
Guys, can I just say that? I mean, well, yeah, I got two wrong. Shit. No, but I was gonna say.
But you always get two wrong.
No, but I took this one seriously,
Yeah.
Yes, you
and it
did.
was just a fumble with one answer of deviating from the court. No, but
But it's not a victory.
no, it's not a victory.
It's not a victory. It's a stalemate. It goes nowhere. The point is that I have to beat Jonah. That's all I care about. Beat you
But
both.
I'm changing my approach. I'm not having fun anymore. I'm in it to
Taking
win
it
it now.
seriously.
I've tasted victory.
No, you've betrayed the United offensive, broken it all down, and now you, without me, are floundering.
I didn't get 0 points though. I got 3. See, I'm going up. It was one incorrect answer basically, because obviously that's how this game works. One incorrect answer means 2 wrong.
But that 2 wrong is not even going to put a drop in satisfying the fact that I took a 0 to and obviously
You've created a monster, James.
I'm going to burn you down as well as Johnny. You're both.
Nah, I'm coming for that trophy. You don't have a trophy.
We'll get one. We'll get a trophy.
And then I'll get it. The exact moment I win, I want a trophy, and then these guys won't have it. I'll take it.
But what I was actually going to say is because it was me deviating from your plan. I feel like I need to do it again, and that's the thing with creepypastas this week. I'm going to deviate.
Was a seamless segue.
I'm deviating slightly away from creepypastas, and it has nothing to do with the fact that my source of creepypasta was running dry.
There's financially viable to still invest in creepypastas.
Please invest.
Yeah, I will still be doing creepypastas. They're not going away, but what I want to do is
take a break,
do a bit of rebranding. You know, not just creepypastas. I wanted to go for run it past you guys something similar to like Down the Rabbit Hole. Saul finds like scary stories.
Yeah.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
We almost like fictional piracy cons.
No. These, yes, fictional, but some of them are actual stories.
Spooky stories.
Val is muscling in.
But no. Because the thing is, they're not conspiracies. These are actually just scary, like actual. Well, this week, I've been looking up near-to-death experiences from astronauts.
Ooh.
The water guy. Basically,
right? Don't you fucking? If this is actually one,
the eye secretions.
Oh no.
Okay, so just quick. So essentially, there was I can't remember the astronaut's name or what he was doing, but he was fucking around in the old big V. Yeah, Yuri Maguri was. I think he was American, so
John Maguri.
Bored Samson, let's call him. Brick Sampson, that was his name. Brick Sampson.
Brick Sampson, American.
Brick Sampson, American astronaut here. So he was up in space, and he was on a spacewalk repairing. I think it was the International Space Station, or it could have been one of NASA's Doomsday satellites. We just don't know. Point is, anyway, as he was trying to get the live feed back up for the Premiership game or whatever, his eyes were leaking because of some space dust that had got into his helmet at some point prior.
Space dust sounds cool.
Or like a drug.
But anyway, his eyes had become irritated, is the point. His eyes began to secrete and stream. And what happened is they formed a globule of water in his eyes, because obviously with zero G, the water doesn't run down your face, it just kind of lumps in front of you. So first of all, it distorted his vision. But then the globule, using kind of surface tension, mixed together and then rolled directly over his mouth and nose.
Wow.
Of course, he has a helmet on that he can't exactly take off to reach his face, and it nearly drowned him. He had to give back, so he nearly drowned and drowned
could
in
he
space.
just gone blown out?
No, he apparently just I don't know. That's the story he told.
Why did you just drink it?
There's two methods of
I don't know. He
rid of
nearly
water
drowned.
around
That's
your
all
face.
I know. He nearly drowned in space. That's all I know. Chris Cassidy, so not far off Brick Sampson, is it? Chris Cassidy, yeah.
How many cc's of water did he have on his face? I don't think you'd stop to appreciate the terribleness of that joke.
Right. Anyway, my stories, not your stories. I'm going to be discussing a famous. First story is a famous astronaut's first flight, which was Chris Hadfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who Chris Hadfield is.
I know him.
He's a Canadian astronomer.
Is he the
guy with the
moustache?
moustache?
Yeah.
So he wrote Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth and things like that. Really, really famous. Great book as well.
He makes YouTube videos as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so his first flight was basically he was helping docking with the Russian
Man.
the Russian man. He was helping the dock. He was a fluffer. No. He was the one that was calculating the speed and distance in which they needed to travel, and was relaying the information to the pilot. So that's what he had to do. Now he had two sensors. One sensor was saying that it was 32 feet away, and the other one was saying that it was 20 feet away, and he had 30 seconds. So basically, if he was going too fast, they would crash into it and kill everyone. If they were going too slowly, they'd bounce off and damage the docking mechanisms, and they wouldn't be able to dock, and they'd probably die again. So it basically had 30 seconds
To just flip a coin.
to figure. No, not even figure. No. He did one better, James. Chris Hadfield, legend that he is, worked it out in his head.
Worked
And
what out?
the distance and the speed that they needed to go. And he got it nearly perfect. He basically, what he did was he used a stopwatch to time how far they had travelled in a certain amount of time within the 30 seconds, and then worked out how fast they were going. So then had to work out then how much to slow down by and how far away the thing was. But basically just looking out the window.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
Fair play.
But yeah, so they...
Was it as cool? Was it as cool as the docking scene in Interstellar?
Yes,
No.
because this one was real.
No, Interstellar is
real.
real. Interstellar is real.
Real docking. My next story, if it had a title, it would be...
My dog was walking around my house.
well, actually, no, someone did give it a title. The previous one was titled Docking. this one was titled Toxic.
Risky title.
Chris Hadfield's Docking. It was just a really obscure Pornhub search. Chris Hadfield Docking. So this one is with this one's with the American astronomer Bob Kirby. He was doing a spacewalk, as you do, when the ammonia pipe basically broke, and the spacecraft use liquid ammonia for cooling the electronics. So it's basically as an inducer to absorb all the heat. And so, but obviously liquid ammonia is incredibly toxic, and the ammonia pipe broke and covered him in it. And the thing is, the problem with that though is the fact that obviously he's fine because he's in the suit, but he couldn't go back into the spacecraft because he was covered in ammonia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he remained calm. He connected back the piping and fixed it. So then it was sorted. But then obviously he had to figure out
How to get out of his suit, but inside the ship.
no.
Oh, I'd have killed myself then, wouldn't I?
I'll just crack a...
Good old Bobby. Good old Bobby, smart thinker. Again, like the thing is, one thing that I need to say is the fact that
Astronauts are all really smart people.
no, that as well as the fact that
Not the Russian ones in the films. They're all dumb as fuck.
Yes,
They're like,
Orky Borky
French
Boo.
is not fixed.
but, no. One thing that you have to know about astronauts is the fact that they are tested to be problem solvers. Because the thing is, if anything goes wrong, you need to come up with a smart way of fixing it. And with Bob, basically, he knew that ammonia has a very low boiling point, so he literally just waited
For the sun to cook it off.
Yes, for
Fair
30
play.
minutes he was out there, just waiting and hoping that enough of it was boiled off before he came back in.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Smart move.
yeah, very smart move.
Well, now the Russian scientists, what they were doing is going, I am covered in liquid ammonium, and then he would have just said it does for Daniel, and he would have just jumped off the space.
Exactly, like, didn't waste the rest of his cruise time.
No.
Probably saved them some oxygen as well.
Yeah, he's just,
Russian
guys,
astronauts up there.
have a big breath on me.
Well, actually, one thing I learned about the cosmonauts was really interesting was the fact that cosmonauts, I think, are one of the only astronauts out there that are allowed to drink alcohol in space, and they do drink they drink cognac because it's good for your health.
It's good for your heart.
And your immune system. So that's why they drink cognac up there. Obviously not excessively, but it just made me laugh because I was thinking about this. Like,
Who's going to stop them? Like, imagine you're at NASA control. Guys, are you?
who's going to send it?
No, I'm just
If you're
saying.
in the International Space
Yeah, but
Station,
you're going
it's
to have
not
to have a
like
supply.
James, you're a Russian cosmonaut on
Yeah.
a perpetually monitored space station, and you're going to disobey a direct order from your boss.
Maybe I went up there to die. I'm just saying, right?
You're going to die
If
when you
you're-
get back down.
I know. Look,
Welcome
they
back,
have to
comrades.
give-
Happy landing. Bang.
I'm just saying.
Wait, the parachute's not deploying. I know.
I mean, this is why
Boss for
I'm.
Daniel.
Other than obviously my.
Have breath on you.
Obviously,
We take breath on you.
obviously, this is why, other than my crippling lack of physical fitness and mental fortitude, I'm not an astronaut. But my point is that you say they have cognac, yeah?
Yeah.
And obviously, they have enough cognac to last potentially, say, 6 months up there, because that's usually the kind of time they tend
Yeah.
to be up there. Or if I just cane it all in one night and I've got, Vladimir Putin, but I'm still drinking old cognac.
No, because you wouldn't want to be drunk on the space station because, as I said, if something goes wrong,
You're the
You're
only
dead.
one who can fix it.
Oh boy,
You can't do
we're
it
fucked
drunk.
now.
no, that's the thing. Like, I think also it would be slightly daunting to think like, oh, something could go wrong at any moment. I need to be constantly alert.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is this is the thing I want to talk about with space travel. Is people always talk about how we're going to travel the stars and all this. But the thing is, space is so dangerous that we send our best and brightest to space and they have to do all this shit just to live. When it's going to become commercially viable, it's going to be just carnage. Because think about this, yeah. not every driver is an astronaut, right?
Yeah, it's like asking. It's like
You know what I'm
asking.
trying to say? No, not every driver is
Yeah,
capable
no, I
and cunning.
hear. It's
yeah.
like it's like expecting everyone who drives on the roads of Britain to be a Formula 1 driver.
Formula 1 driver. What I'm trying to say is all these astronauts in space right now are, as you say, problem solvers. They're really responsible. They're not like me, who would just cane the cognac because someone told them they couldn't cane the cognac. But human beings are inherently stupid fucking monkeys. So what I'm trying to say is, why would we start trying to make this a viable form of transport? You're going to have people like me, say, who get open the pipe, see there's loads of ammonia on it, and go like, "Sally up, lads, I'm coming back in," and just kill everyone. The point is that like, it's going to be absolute chaos.
Patch up and not my fucking problem.
So I did my job anyway. I'm coming back in. I want to take a shit. Dead. Whole crew dead. The point is that so many human beings are going to die in the cold void of space because of the weirdest things.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I'm saying.
You got another one?
Yes, I have one more. This is coming from the person that did the first ever spacewalk and what had happened. So this is Alexei Leonov, or Leonov. Leonov. Good, I was right the first time. So Alexei Leonov, he's the first man to ever do a spacewalk. So obviously this is obviously prototype spacesuits for being out in 0G. So
Imagine that, Jesus Christ.
yeah, being the first person to actually test
You're
it.
being prototype spacesuit. Has this been tested before? Not by human beings. Dogs seem
Now,
fine.
I would like to point out that some of the story sounds very genuine. The rest of it,
I saw Vladimir Lenin, and he was conquering other worlds of their capitalist.
so he was doing a spacewalk when the air in the suit basically starts leaking, and he notices that his fabric is starting to stiffen. So basically, he's out there.
Boris, you said you test.
But the one problem was the fact that because the air in the suit was escaping, it expanded, so he couldn't actually fit back into the shuttle because the
Boris, you've
suit was
covered
too
me in
big.
crucial toilet paper.
The suit had expanded too big. So what he had to do was reduce the pressure of the suit so much to get it down to get him in. But obviously he majorly risked getting the bends.
Oh my
Yeah,
word.
because obviously that change in air pressure just to get him back in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he because obviously he realised what he had to do and just was like, well, I might die. Sorted it out, and then basically he managed to squeeze the suit back in. And so yeah, he almost died.
I've done
there.
that before. When you take a sleeping bag out of the bag and then you have to put it back in, that's what it
Yeah,
feels
basically,
You
like.
yeah.
almost get a nitrogen bubble in your blood.
Yeah.
Val got the bends stuffing her sleeping bag back in the fucking small tube. Like,
But yeah,
I can see it now that this guy goes for all of that, squeezes back into the shuttle, and there's the Soviet team popping the champagne already because they're like, he's back, and he's just there like, I have the bends, and then they're like, oh.
Want to drink?
Yeah.
I like how he was going to pop champagne in a spacecraft.
No, I mean obviously
Oh
the
god, we
monitor.
perforated it.
No, I meant like on the monitor, like back at
Oh,
HQ,
okay,
like they're
okay.
all ready to celebrate because
Yeah.
they see he's coming back
I was
in.
gonna say, like,
Not so
just
bad.
fucking up all the whole electronics.
The dialect
Sparkling
No,
liquid.
but hear me out. What would happen to? Because obviously it's carbonated.
Yeah.
What would happen if you were to pop champagne?
You'd
in
have
space?
really, really-
These are the questions that are going to get people killed.
Well, these
That's
are
what I'm
actually-
saying.
It actually probably
These are the questions that Chris Hadfield answers in his YouTube videos whenever you see him show liquids in space.
yeah.
Was he in space right now? How's he answering these questions?
No, he uploaded YouTube videos while he was on the ISS.
Yeah, but I want to see what happened. I want to see someone
Oh, he did.
pop
That's-
champagne.
No, but he played with liquids.
Of
Okay.
different kinds.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So the next part of the story is when they were coming back to Earth, entering the atmosphere. Their shuttle slightly went off course, and they ended up landing on the Ural Mountains.
Where were they supposed to land?
I don't know, but they crashed there.
It's not the point, is it? The point is they made it. They made it in the Ural.
just saying-
this is what happened.
Because usually you aim for bodies of water. So what was the course adjustment that led them from a body of water to the Ural?
Well, it's 'cause
The Earth,
they normally land in Point Nemo, which is the furthest place from any piece of land. That's why. But that's where the ISS, when it finally is finished, will end up.
This
I
is
thought the US was going to drop it on China.
No, they're going to drop his tungsten rods on China.
No, so because he actually went off course, the Dyatlov Pass incident happened and those kids were killed before seeing that.
No, that would have been no. It was the fact that so they crashed, and he was basically it was him and his commander was waiting for rescue when they heard howling, and the shuttle was then surrounded by wolves.
The wolves were like, what the fuck is this?
Do you really think that's farcical?
I think a little bit, because the fact that they crash landed and they were like, "Wow, we survived," and then it was like, "Oh," it sounds more like a TV show. The fact that all these wolves have surrounded.
I absolutely buy that.
Russia is wild, and like at the end of the day, wolves.
Yeah.
You know, they would want to investigate this weird thing that dropped out of the sky, wouldn't they?
See, I wanted to do those stories because I was looking into them, and a lot of them was basically like weird shit that astronauts have seen in space.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, nah, I don't care about that. I want to know the actual real things that happened.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to know that, you know, some American guy was like, oh, I saw some weird light. It's like one thing that really annoyed me was the fact that like on MKUltra there was this video of like, you know, those lights like look like meteors coming down and then stopping and hovering, and then and everyone's like, oh, it's aliens, and then media was like, guys, we know what this is. It's night parachuters with meteor flares. This has been disproved so many times. And yeah, but no, it was just it was the fact that the wolves circled the shuttle. And they just had to wait for their rescue.
Hear me out. I imagine it's this. You land and you hear wolves howling and you're like, there are wolves circling us. That's probably more what it is. I don't imagine like the wolves surrounded them and were like, give us your technology. We wish to travel to the stars. Like, I imagine it's more like they saw a couple of wolves and were like, oiky poiky back in the shuttle, and then, you know, we were surrounded by wolves. Because that's what you would say.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. If you were just in London, say, and, I don't know, you're just in the middle, you found yourself in Leicester Square, all alone.
There was two squirrels, surrounded.
Yeah, I was surrounded by... they were, I don't know what sound squirrels make. They were kind of, they were kind of chattering at me.
What are you getting at?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, when you tell these stories, you'd be like, I was surrounded by wolves.
Yeah, you'd exaggerate.
You'd exaggerate,
which
like,
would
there were
mean
loads of
that
wolves.
was right in the fact that it's not 100%.
No, but what I'm saying is there were still wolves. You still wouldn't be like, oh, let's go out there and risk it. Yeah.
All I was saying was that the fact that they said that they were like encircled by them, it sounded a bit.
And it's that kind of exaggerating spirit that we like to bring out in every episode of The Late Shift. Thank you for listening to us this week. We'll be back next week with some more piracy cons and some more who let them near a keyboard. Thank you so much once again, and have a wonderful day, night, morning, evening, every time of day. Bye bye.
The end of the world.
Yes. Enjoy the apocalypse. I heard it's really good.